Good evening, chaps, and welcome back to Glazed, which is my dwarf fortress, or at the moment more of a hole in the hill. So I was hoping to get this next video recorded over the weekend, but we had some very un-British like weather in that the sun actually decided to come out. So like a true Brit, I went out into the un-British weather and got completely sunburnt. But anyway, here I am recording now. So you'll probably notice that not much has really changed since the last video. Just panning around here. So if we let the game run for a little bit, so you can we still have the carpenter's workshop, the mason's workshop, and there's a still here which should be constructed any minute. Just have a simple dormitory. This is the farming setup. So I added a furniture stockpile here just to pick up some of the things that are being made and hopefully get some stuff as well from the embark which might not have already been stored. I was just looking at it now actually because there's definitely still some stuff left up there. So if we just have a quick look, what have we got? Thread, crutch, cloths, buckets, splint, quivers. So it might be that we need a little weapons one just to capture some of that. So I'll just put that in. Anything else? Just having a look. Refuge. Just put a little finished good one there just in case. So anyway, what have I actually done? So although this was going to be quite a quick fortress, and I think it probably still will be, one of the things I was keen to do is just spend a bit of time just putting some thought into exactly how I want the fortress to go, because you can get in trouble in this game where you just sort of plough on at the start with a setup a bit like this, and then you get down the line, you've got 100 dwarves, and you realise that actually you want an epic entrance that lets you fire magma at everything that enters the map. And sometimes you do actually have to plan it out a bit. So I thought, right, I'll just take a bit of time, think about what I want to do. And that's what I've done. So they're going to start brewing drinks. Is that a wheelbarrow? So they're new since I last played as well. I want to try some stuff out with wheelbarrows and also with stockpiles. So I've got this idea where I want to have one large central stores. And we're going to try and build that a bit like a store would be in real life. So I'm going to hollow out quite a large area, and then I'm going to have the stockpiles stacked as though they were on different levels in the stores on pallets, like you might have at a modern stores used today for a manufacturing facility, for example. So I want to try and have a central stores which will be quite deep underground, and then everything will feed into that first, and then from that it will trickle upwards towards the industry. So I normally go for quite a horizontal layout in my fortresses, but I want to try, I think it's an idea that I originally read about on Reddit. Sometimes follow posts on the Dwarf Fortress Reddit there. There's some really, really incredible Dwarf Fortress players there. But one of the ideas there, well, quite a common idea, is to try and exploit vertical space a bit more. Excuse me. Just going to take a sip of my coffee. Because as you probably know, it takes a dwarf as long to go up or down a Z level as it does to move in the X direction. So you can stack things, which is quite an efficient design. Now I don't normally do that too much. I don't think it's as visually impressive, and I'm not normally super fussed about having the most efficient fortress in the world. But I thought I would try to incorporate some of that into this one. So something I'm going to be trying to do is stacking my industry. So we'll have the primary industry lower down near the central store, and then that will feed into some really small stockpiles directly above it, and then directly above that we'll have the secondary industry. So there are a few industries in this game that have multiple layers, and that will suit that quite well. And then at the top of those different Z levels with all the industry on, we'll have another smaller stores, and that should just store the more higher value items and the finished goods that we're going to trade. And then the trade depot will be even nearer the surface, so it will just trickle up one more step. Now I know some of the really valuable items that are created by dwarves who go into fey moods or retreat from society, or all the different ways that they can do it. I think it'd be quite cool to try and make a vault to keep them in, so that's something I'm quite keen to do. Not really a practical vault, but more just from the roleplay side of things. I quite like creating buildings like that that visually look like something from the real world, and then it just adds, in my opinion, to the character of the fortress, which is really what I'm going to try and do in this game. So if we just pause it now, I'll try and talk you through exactly what I've done. So this hasn't really changed. You'll see a row of channeling here, which is just creating a down ramp. So I thought a bit about how I want the entrance to the fort to look, and to be honest, I considered completely abandoning this and just starting out on the ground here, maybe just making a big castle or fortress on the ground floor and then digging down. But I quite like the idea of having the defences underground, which is something I tend to do relatively often in my fortresses. So if we follow this down, so you can see I've got a number of ramps here, and that's to allow a wagon into the fortress. So you have to have 3 wide ramp for a wagon to be able to enter. And I'm really hoping that I've remembered how to do this right, because it'd be very embarrassing if it turns out I got it completely wrong. So you can see there's a number of floors here before anything really happens. So when I was planning this out, I just did a quick, well, I say top to bottom, I just in Excel started going down the cells and planning what I wanted on each floor roughly, just to give me a starting point. So these floors here, I pretty much always leave these barren, just because you never really know what you're going to end up doing with water, so it's good to leave yourself some room to manoeuvre. And I will be putting a little dugout room with a series of floodgates as like a central junction for the water system that will go into the fortress. So I like to do that normally quite early, so you just channel off and then you have a little small system with a whole series of floodgates, and then it just lets you have room later in the game to expand. And if you need loads of different water inlets going into your fortress, then you've got that flexibility, which is quite nice. So this floor here, which is just being dug out now by the miner, I've put D here, so that's the first defence floor, and then I've put another one here, so that's another defensive floor, and then here where it says E, that'll actually be the entrance. So I'm going to explain this in a little bit of a backwards fashion, and I apologise if I completely lose you because it is a little bit confusing, but we'll see how we go. So what you see here, this is where everything will appear. This is actually going to be a 4 wide bridge, a bit like Hazard Doom from Lord of the Rings, if anyone follows that. So when Gandalf faces off against the massive Balrog, it's going to be a bridge like that inside a cavern. So the bridge will come along here. I've just designated some mining here, and this will actually be a wall, so it will be like a little keep at the end of the bridge that the attackers will have to get through, and then they'll be into the actual fortress proper. So left here, just done these very simple, I say circles, they're squares with the corners cut off, but that gives you a 3x3 in the middle. So this one will be where the trade depot is, so still relatively close to the surface, and then this will actually give access into the fort. So although this is all dug out on this floor currently, what I'll eventually be doing is channeling all the mining designation here out, and that will create a cavern and empty space. So we'll have 2 floors of empty space, and the only thing on these floors will be defences. So I'll have a couple of galleries either side here that will overlook this pathway for Mark's Dwarf to be able to pepper any of the attackers with crossbows. And then either side there'll just be a drop. And then down here we'll have a moat. So initially this is going to have to be filled up with water, but of course we're going to be going for lava eventually for extra dwarfiness and fun. So I'm sure we've all been there when one of your master defenders dodges out the way of something which isn't a threat at all and falls straight into the lava, but we'll see how that goes. So this floor is where the actual entrance will be. So this floor will visually actually resemble this entranceway here once everything's channeled out. But I just wanted to get things going, get the ball rolling, and give ourselves a bit of space to start doing things in the fort before we mess around channeling everything out, because that will take quite a long time, frankly, especially while these miners aren't up to speed with their skills yet. So they'll dig down. I need to actually designate out that staircase. So this priority is something new as well. So you can set the priority now, which I guess gives you some control over what the miners are going to mine out first. So these side bits, which actually are pretty meaningless, I could, for example, turn their priority down, but I don't think it matters too much at the moment. So they'll dig that out, and then this is where the actual entrance will be. And then I've just put an F here, which basically just means fortress. So this is where the first proper floor of the fort will be, because I don't tend to have that much on the entrance level once they've got past that bridge. So then what I'm thinking of doing, I mentioned before of having industry stacked fairly vertically. So that'll probably be, if I can move it over, can't really see a lot here other than unmined earth. So the industry will probably be over to one of these sides. And then I spoke about getting a pub. So I've done a bit of reading about how the taverns work. Sounds pretty cool. So you can have a tavern keeper now who will serve drink, and you can also get visitors that will stay in the taverns. So I've got an idea in my head for a tavern design that I want to try and pull off, and that's going to be multi-Z level as well, so I'm going to need quite a lot of space for that. So I think that's going to stretch 3 levels, possibly 4, and I think really that'll probably be the heart of the fortress. I think that's where most of the dwarves are going to go to socialise. It's going to be where they go to pass their spare time, and perhaps most importantly where they go to consume all their booze. So I also want to get a tree farm. That's probably a bit later on. We need to get into the caverns first before anything will start growing anyway. And a hospital, that's a lot longer term. And then I mentioned the central stores, so that's going to stretch a number of floors as well. So I don't know whether that will just exist on the same floors as the pub, but maybe over the opposite side of the fortress. I quite like the idea of having just this massive pub on one side full of boozed up dwarfs that barely know what their own name is, and then just across the way having this giant stores which holds all the fortress's wealth, watched over by a spidery little dwarf who's probably very, very old, holding his pen, desperately trying to stop everyone from running off with everything in the stores. And that will be the bookkeeper, keeping all the records up to date. And then I haven't actually decided on the design for it yet, but quite deep down will be where all the dormitories and bedrooms go. So I'll probably just go for a fractal design for that. I don't think it'll be anything too fancy. It'll be the usual bed, door. I was going to say cupboard then. Is it a cupboard? The container that they use might be a cupboard. I think it might be a chest. And then I don't think there's too much else to mention at this stage. So that's the grand designs for the fort. Let me know what you guys think. If you've got any tips or advice, let me know. I tend to be discovering things literally every time I do something at the moment, so I've probably only let the game actually play for maybe 20 minutes, and I've already discovered this mining priority thing which I hadn't seen before. We just saw one of the dwarfs running around like a lunatic with a little wheelbarrow. So I did a bit of reading about that. That sounds quite cool. So it sounds like hauling's a lot more of a big deal than it was when I played a few years ago. I do eventually want to try and mess around with minecarts, but I don't think I'm going to be confident enough in how they work to really embed it in this fortress. So maybe for a future design can try and make that a core part of it, which I think would be quite cool. It sounds like you can get some quite complicated designs going. So that's something I'd quite like to explore. But yeah, I think that's it for now, guys. I just wanted to give an overview of what I've done, which isn't too much, I'm afraid, because I've been out enjoying the sun, which seems to appear in Britain about once every couple of years, so you need to make the most of it. But that's the principal design of it, the things that are going on the different floors. I'm quite looking forward to getting going on this pub, really. I don't know whether to make it out of wood or not. Let me know what you think. I feel like it should be like a proper traditional British pub. It should be made out of wood. But I don't know what would happen if we got something like a fire-breathing forgotten beast or something came out of the caves and all of a sudden half your fortress is having the time of their lives in a pub one second and inside their burning tomb the next second, which might not be the best idea. So we'll have to figure out whether that's going to work or not. So yeah, let me know what you think. I've still got Dwarf Therapist to set up, so that's going to be one of the next things I do. and then hopefully, I know it's been 2 very talky videos with not very much moving on the screen, so hopefully now we can actually let the dwarfs do their little thing and actually start to dig out some of this fortress and start to get some functionality in there, maybe set up some industries, because we're still very very thin on the ground really. I mean, we've got 3 workshops set up now. I don't even know. So I know there was a cancellation message. Yeah, okay. Cancels plant seeds. I don't know, that's for the farming, so I haven't got any plant helmet spawn, which probably isn't ideal. Needs unrotten drink material producing plants. So that's not great news. So we have got 10 plump helmets. So I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't be able to brew the plump helmets. I may have to do a bit of digging into that. Not too sure. We'll have a look. So that's it for now, guys. Sorry it's taken a bit longer than I hoped to get the video out. As I say, I was trying to enjoy the sunshine before I overindulged and got rather sunburnt. As ever, let me know, any feedback or comments would be great. And I'm going to try and set up a thing, so if you guys want to start getting some of your names in this fort, then we can try and incorporate that and maybe follow some of the dwarfs through the history. As I have no idea what's going to happen. I can't promise to keep you safe from harm. I'm hoping we'll get some quite spectacular fun happening as the fort progresses. So I'm going to check out for now. I hope you enjoy the second video. As always, all feedback welcome. Cheers, guys.